In the year 2014, human being absolutely destroys Mother of Nature and the Earth's atmosphere, which causes the Earth to heat up immensely. Scientists conclude that if the temperature continues dropping this fast, the whole civilization will be destroyed in the next few years. As a result, they make a kind of stratospheric gas so that on a particular day all the countries spray this gas in the sky to restore the atmosphere. The atmosphere is restored, but it backfired. The layer becomes too thick, causing the start of an ice age and the loss of life. A genius scientist named Wilford, who predicted this disastrous event and has built a train that is constantly rotating on a track around the globe. Inside of this train has a heating system, and the nose of the train is designed in such a way that it pulls snow from the rails and turns it into purified and drinkable water. Those who managed to board on this train are the last survivors of humankind. Those who left outside are completely frozen and vanished. The people inside the train form a class hierarchy, which includes the rich class at the front of the train, the middle class in the middle, and the poor class at the end of the train. 17 years have passed since the beginning of the Ice Age, and it is now 2031. The people at the end of the train, the poor people, are overwhelmed and tired of their condition. Hard work, the same food every day, and lack of health and treatment. As a result, they think of a revolution and taking control of the train. There he is, the Captain America. This is Curtis, one of the residents at the end of the train, and a sort of leader of the revolution. One day when the guards come to distribute food, they ask everyone to sit down, but Cortez stands up so that he can count the opening and closing time of the doors. This is their food, they call it protein mold, and this is the only food they have eaten in the past 17 years. During the distribution of food, the guards announce that if anyone who knows how to play violin come forward, an old couple comes forward, but they need just one person, and the couple wants to be together or none. The guard goes on and knocks his wife because they want only one person. After the guards leave, Curtis checks everyone's foods looking for a message that their spy sending it by placing it inside their foods. These messages contain information that helps their revolution. Curtis finds the message and goes to Gilliam to read it together. Gilliam is Curtis' guide and is a former locomotive engineer. It means that Gilliam was in charge of the train several years ago, but for some reason he was fired and thrown into the back of the train. There is a name written on the paper. It is the name of a security expert who designed all the doors of the train and can help in breaking the locks on the doors to the higher stages of the train. The plan is that they have 4 seconds to go through the first 3 doors to get to the prison section where this specialist lives, and from there on, he will help them. In the middle of the night, the guards come inside and separate the children from their parents under the pretext of medical examination. Wilford's assistant, Claude, measures the height of the children and takes Tanya's son Timmy and Andrew's son Andy with her. Andrew, who is not ready to give up on his son, beats one of the guards and throws his shoe and hits her in the head. She takes the children and the guards take him down. The 2 people, who are the head of the guards, take off Andrew's clothes, tie a lock around his arm and send his hand out of the wagon. A map reader comes, and based on the area they are in, it says that it takes 7 minutes for his hand to be completely frozen. They set a clock to 7 minutes and put it on his neck. Meanwhile, Mayor Mason comes and starts giving a speech. 7 minutes later, they bring Andrew's hand inside and we see that his hand is completely frozen. They put his hand on the table and hammer it to pieces. A few days later, everyone cooperates and builds a big pipe with barrels so that they can pass through the first 3 doors in 4 seconds by using it. Curtis has long suspected that the guards' guns are empty and believes that all their bullets have been used up in previous riots. But still, the risk is high and he may be wrong, so before the conflict takes place, he goes ahead to make sure. As soon as they realize that the guards are out of ammunition, they quickly push the pipe that was made and pass through 3 doors and reach the first stage base. Here, Gilliam sends his bodyguard, Gary, to the front, and then they take their keys and open the door of the security specialist. They free the captive specialist, named Namgung. He is addicted to chronol, a type of industrial waste which makes you intoxicated by smelling it. Curtis tells him to cooperate with them. In return, they give him a portion of that thing for every door he opens. Nam takes a Marlboro Light cigarette out of his shoe and starts smoking. Also, cigarettes have been extinct for 10 years. After a brief thinking, he asks them that his daughter Una should come with them. She is also an addict, so they have to give 2 chronol for each door. When he opens the door, Una says that there is no one behind the door, as if she can see behind the door in the wall. The door of the wagon opens. True to her word, there is no one there. Nam and his daughter take their 2 chronol and start enjoying it. The others are checking the wagon as the sunlight shines through the windows, and they can see the sunlight for the first time in 17 years. When he opens the next door, his daughter says that a man is running. The door opens, and just as Eunice said, a man is running in the wagon and playing monkey. It turns out that this guy's name is Paul, and he used to be one of the residents of the poor class. A few years ago, the guards brought him there to make protein mold, and since then he has been alone in this wagon and has completely lost his saint. Curtis looks inside the molding pot and sees that these protein molds are made of cockroaches, which means they have been eating cockroaches for a lifetime. Curtis finds another message in one of the formats and asks Paul if he is the one who is sending these messages. But he is not the one, he just receives them from some unknown person to put them inside the food. Curtis reads the message that's saying water. They get a hint of the message. If they take control of the water, they would have the power to negotiate. When Nam is struggling to open the next door, his daughter asks him to stop, but the door opens to a herd of war men with axes and sticks waiting for them. There is also a fish in there, which I don't know why. Anyway, the clash begins between the two groups, and in the middle of the fight, Curtis steps on that fish and falls to the ground. Someone from the other group is closing from behind to Curtis, but luckily Edgar saves him with a heroic move. As the clash is going, Mayor Mason comes and calls them ignorant and disgraceful, and starts giving speeches and lots of nonsense like we see with politicians every day. Curtis throws an axe at her, but unfortunately the guard saves her. Mayor Mason puts on a night vision device, so do her men. There is a long tunnel ahead and it's going to be dark everywhere. The lights is gone one after another. The train gets to the tunnel, it gets dark, but since the soldiers have night vision, they can see and start slaughtering these unfortunates, until Gary lights a torch from the bottom of the train and brings it to the front. This makes the soldiers unable to see because of the light hitting their eyes. Later, Gary throws a knife and hits Mason's leg. When Curtis is going to get Mason, Gary is captured by Franco, one of the heads of securities, but instead of going to save Gary's life, Curtis traps Mason and Franco kills Gary. Curtis takes Mason hostage and all the soldiers surrender. Young Franco runs towards Curtis until Yona helps him to meet his destiny. Old Franco, this man is deeply affected by seeing this scene. I think he was his brother. The survivors find water and showers in the wagon. Meanwhile, Curtis takes Andrew, Tanya, and Mason to a place and they ask her where they took their children. Mason says that the children were taken to Wilford, and if they want to save the children and their revolution, they must go to the front of the train to meet Wilford himself. Wilford is the one who built and controls the train. He is the man for everything they got. The next day, a few of them gather and take Mason with them. They pass the train cars and go forward. First, it passes through the garden section where vegetables and fruits are grown inside. Next, the aquarium wagon where they farm fish. After the meat refrigerator wagon, they arrive at the school section where the children study and are given nutrition and brainwashing. In the middle of the class, a bald man comes in with boiled eggs as gifts from Mr. Wilford. He spreads the eggs and goes to the end of the wagon. Curtis finds a message inside his egg which says, "Blood." At the same instance, the guy and the teacher pull out the guns and start shooting. Gary throws a knife and slits the teacher's throat. Old Franco kills Jillian. Then Curtis, who has lost his temper, kills Mason to compensate, and they continue to move forward. The next wagons are the residences of the rich and have all kinds of facilities, such as beauty salons, hospitals, etc. Anyway, Curtis and Franco are playing gun game as they continue forward, but since both of them have terrible aim, neither of them hit the target. Curtis continues to move forward. All this time, Nam is looking out the window and notices that the volume of ice has decreased and the snowflakes have become finer and more fragile. All this means that the weather outside has started to break out of the frozen era. Franco, who is as mad as a heated horse, follows Curtis and finally gets to him. He kills Gary and Tanya, and finally, Nam and Curtis work together and succeed in knocking down the giant in the last stage. Now, Curtis, Nam, and Yuna, the three of them cross the disco wagon and the drug house together, and the two take whatever they see. Chronol goes so far that they reach the back door, peeking them. Curtis asks Nam to open the door to Wilford, but Namgung is not willing to open that door. Instead, he wants to blow up the door to outside. Curtis doesn't want to get out of the train because of the temperature. Nam tries to assure him that coldness has decreased and they can survive. Then he puts all the chronol he collected together and places a detonator in the middle like a bomb and sticks it to the exit door. Curtis wants to stop him when Wilford's wagon opens and his assistant comes out and shoots Namgung and tells Curtis that Wilford wants to talk to him. Wilford cooks some steaks and sits with Curtis at the table. Wilford explains to Curtis that he himself sent those messages to Curtis, and in fact, Wilford himself had planned this revolution to reduce and to stabilize the population on the train. Surprisingly, Wilford and Gilliam were friends and they both planned this revolution and all previous revolutions together. At first, Curtis doesn't believe Wilford until Wilford reveals that he has a phone that is directly connected to Gilliam's room and they used to talk every night. It is true that Wilford had planned this revolution, but he did not think that Curtis could get this far to the tip of the train. Wilford tells Curtis he is now old and willing to give his position to Curtis, and he has to become the leader and as the conductor of the train. While these two are talking, the rich and middle class people have rushed to the front of the train, which is exactly behind the door to Wilford's car. Curtis doesn't know whether to save the train or the revolution. They rebel to have their own revolution, and while Nam is holding this nation back, he orders orders his daughter to ignite the bomb. Yuna goes to Curtis to take the lighter. Curtis is not willing to give it, but after discovering the children are working as engine parts that are missing, he punches Wilford and saves Timmy, Tanya's child, and gives the matches to Yona. Then the explosion causes an avalanche and sends half of the train down the cliff, and the other half, which is the front part, goes into the tunnel. Out of the entire population, Yuna and Tim are the survivors. When they get out of the train, they see that the temperature has actually become warmer and they can survive on the Earth if that weirdo polar bear doesn't eat them, of course.